some of the information that have been coming out. There are a lot of movement, actually, in respect of the effect of the subsidy removal regime in Nigeria from the day President Tinubu mentioned it on the 29th of May at the Eagle Square. There were consequences. The consequences are very straightforward. Increase in price of the product of petrol, increase in price of commodity, and the consequence, it goes on and on. So at the NEC meeting, there were proposals that were being made. Part of it was about 702 billion. Several other issues were raised. But the information that we have is that there was a committee that has been set up. Part of the issue that has been raised is that are there data to this effect? Are there data to support what is available and what can be dished out? The fact is that they are now working the books to ensure that the data and their figures are correct. We understand that the governors met for the first time yesterday after their NEC meeting, which set up that committee, and they have begun work on it. That's as far as we know. So we keep pushing the information so that Nigerians can have the benefit and the insight into what exactly is going on. But let me also tell you, you perhaps have been reading about the story of the possible increase in emoluments, wages of some political office holders. But that commission, Ramfac, tonight had debunked and denied the official who made that statement. They said, look, that position was made, and since February, that position has been made, but the process is not finalized and it has not been concluded, and so it is false. That is fast as far as we know. But then, if there is any increase, which means that some of those who are earning about 2 million would have been earning 8 million and above. That will be the consequence. But let's get some perspectives. Under the Tinubu presidency, the figures are changing. The prices of commodities are changing. Your life is probably changing because what you are able to put on the table and the money in your pocket is also being affected. Dr. Paul Alaje, an economist, joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much, Dr. Alaje, for joining us tonight.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Interesting times, isn't it?
Yes, very, very interesting moment. We are changing or transforming from a kind of economy we used to know to a completely different, a more competitive economy. Now, what you used to know about yourself in 2019 or 21, when you earned 250,000, that same amount by December this year, without the policies and increases that we are seeing in the country recently, in terms of value, would have reduced to 100,000 naira. That is what the National Bureau of Statistics said. About more than 50%. Inflation, yes, because inflation is at an average of 20% per annum. So if you take 20% off in 2021 by December 31st, 20% off in 2022 by December 31st, and another 20% by December 23, by December 31st, 2023. In all of these, we have not yet spoken about potential increase in inflation. Now, we are taking necessary injection as a country, because when you look at what the component of capital expenditure for the country, it has remained less than 30%, about 25%. It may even go further down. But when you look at what we spend on servicing debt under the last budget, what we spend about subsidy. In fact, we should have spent approximately 7 trillion naira on subsidy. And when you had approximately 3 to 5 trillion naira to that, you see that if you put 19 states together in terms of their budget, I'm not sure they would have all of those. That is what we would have spent in two patterns: subsidy and debt service. Perhaps that is why we are having some of these policy come up. And I'm speaking for, but there are several other arguments against some of the policy, because for every economic decision you make, there is what we call trade-off. So you want to reduce inflation, be ready to increase unemployment. You want to reduce unemployment if it is not based on creating more jobs. It is by just adjusting methodology, for instance, from, say, 20 hours a week to 1 hour a week. You think you have adjusted unemployment, but you're actually creating bigger challenges. because of the kind of economy that we live and the kind of nature of the economy that we have in the country.
Let's break it down to how an average Nigerian worker can perceive this. So I'm looking, I mean, you were listening to the conversation between myself and Festus, the TUC president. The demand of labor include, the TUC specifically includes jacking up workers' wages from 30,000 as a minimum wage to 200,000. That, I don't know what percentage that is now. And petrol price came from 184 thereabout to over 500,000 naira. I mean, 500 naira. So it means that it's about 160% increase. Give us a sense of what this means, the purchasing power of an average citizen. If the approval comes, and I don't know what the federal government will approve eventually, whether or not 200,000 naira still is reasonable based on your analysis that if you were earning or you have 250,000 naira about 3 years ago, it comes to about 100,000 naira in Nigeria of today.
And that has no impact with the current subsidy removal. It has no impact on what exchange rate policy has been. It's just inflation that has been happening in Nigeria at not less than 20% on the average, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, with this new policy of removing subsidy, what we've done, when you look at national income equation, we said that national income equation is a function of what we are all consuming as household, the total investment in our country, and government expenditure. We need to pause there. Let's assume it's a closed economy, because if it's open, you look at the difference between import and export. But if it's a closed economy, you are looking at government expenditure. Subsidy is a government expenditure. Government is saying, hey guys, I'm not going to babysit you anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a competitive economy. Government will not intervene. So government removes hand and say, household and firm, you have to pay. So this is breaking down the implication of the economy.
Meanwhile, what they used to have, the value of what they have has been reduced.
Now
From the reduction, the little that they have now, they have to now pay more.
Exactly.
For petrol.
Here is the challenge. The money they have is reducing. Government revenue is also spent on subsidy, trying to help household and firms. So here is the challenge for government. Government needs to survive. Government needs to have its 2 legs, on. If not, if government has every year we have not built any infrastructure, so in all of this, if subsidy must be removed, I'd mentioned time and again, even on this program, what must be done first?
What is that?
First of all, we need to have local refineries functioning. But we've gone past that argument because subsidy has been removed. That would have been the best, because when you say subsidy is not removed, if exchange rate changes from what it is today to any rate, say 750, 800 at official window, be ready to buy PMS at not less than 700 liters, 700 naira per liter in Abuja. You know why? Because we don't have control. It's completely outside our control. Yes, so we have to pay more. But if it's happening locally, government might decide to partner
to control
to control the prices. Then we know that economy will be relatively stable, because exchange rate is out of our control. We import a lot of commodities to the country, even though we export some kind of commodity. So we are hoping that if we have local refinery, they will reduce the pressure on the foreign reserve that we have that is giving us all of these challenges. So that said, too, what will drive even more inflation is food inflation. Because with the new policy, the person that is selling corn, even very close by, we all eat corn. This is a period where people are buying corn and selling all over the place, all over our country. The question is, the price of corn that was 70 or 50 naira last year is now 100 to 150 this year. What has happened? Does it mean that to plant corn, you need petrol, you need dollar? The answer is no. Because the man that is planting also lives in this same economy, and his income has been depleted. For him to keep living, he needs to increase the prices. That will affect rents, that will affect a number of things, cost of transportation. So for you to earn more, for you to continue to live, you had better look for more means to earn more. But if time permits, we may share some other revelation.
So for my audience on this program tonight, I'd like you to break it down. let's talk, because con that you mentioned has a political connotation. It has been used on Twitter during the election period. So when you say con is expensive, there's some guys who will probably begin a war on Twitter tonight about the cost of con and what con means. But jokes apart, let's get a bit more serious on the impact of some of the policies of the Tinubu presidency. Just in 1 month that this government came into power, the policy decisions and directives that are totally altered a lot of things. But some have argued that it will be a momentary pain, but for, again, some kind of gain in the nearest future. But let's be realistic and speak truth to ourselves. As a family, as a people in this country, are we to expect more pain in the coming days?
I think we should expect more pains. What is important?
How painful would it be?
Well, it will be very painful. There are so many other things, structural changes that has not been done in this country for a long time. So if there is anything you must give to the current president, is taking some structural changes. His statement, his policy are reforms in some ways. So you see the issue of FX, as dangerous as it is. Let me start with the issue of subsidy. Every gain from subsidy, so that we don't lose sight of all of this. President Buhari started the same thing, but people may forget. When he got to office, exchange rate was 199. Within 3 weeks, after a lot of pressure came from all over economists and all of those, he allowed central bank, gave central bank the permission to do the same thing President Tinubu did. Unfortunately, the administration did not invest all the gains that were made on that policy on infrastructure. So we saw some of the money went into the current expenditure. Eventually, the first year we saw 70-30. A lot of people were happy. Second year, 70-30. After that, it wasn't 70-30. So this administration must ensure that all the gains made from, what's it called now? All the gain made from subsidy removal goes directly into infrastructure. Yeah. That is how it can benefit people, because it will form part of government expenditure and investment. Then you are going to see more jobs, you are going to see more development. This is priority for government.
But it's as if we are working on eggshells right now.
Exactly.
And government needs to be very careful with its policy, because every of the policy can trigger one thing. And when that trigger comes, it has a dovetailing effect.
Yes.
And the people will bear the brunt. So here, say for example, how long could this pain be? Because I'm imagining a lot of things. I'm graphic in my imagination. Say the first 6 months might be a bit turbulent, isn't it?
No, it's already turbulent. If it's going worse than the pressure, but I can tell you the pressure of exchange rate and subsidy will be with us for a while. In fact, inflation may remain double-digit, perhaps for the next 1 year. That's the truth. Any economist that want to tell you the truth will tell you, because the two policies are coming at the same time. So if we put any other policy that will induce inflation, then it might be too dangerous. So we can see how to manage these two economic policies side by side for a while. And that is why it's important to look at structural changes in a long-term perspective, not what we can just do now and see what the implication will be.
And the consequence might be the more difficult decisions this government might make them politically unpopular.
Exactly. But you see, it's important. I love to play the devil's advocate. It's important to make some tough decisions. But we should not lose sight of 133 million people that are living below poverty line. They are living in multidimensional poverty, I beg your pardon. Over 80 million people living below poverty line. Yeah. So we need to balance all of these conversations. For me, it's important for us to say we have removed subsidy, even though there are things that should have been done before subsidy is removed. They are not done. What are we going to do? If you increase salary from 35,000 or 30,000 to 200,000, that would be a recipe for disaster.
Wow.
Because inflation is expected to go to above 30%. But does that mean you should not increase salary? No. You must increase people's income. But how do we do that? And who will drive this increase? That means there must be more opportunities for private sector to generate more income so that the economy can grow. And that is why for all of this to happen, government must invest 100% of all gains, about 7 trillion naira additional into infrastructure. So if you had invested 5 or 6 trillion in 2023...
Which kind of infrastructure are you looking at?
Rail, road, Infrastructure,
and those who have
education,
direct
impact in the life of people.
There are those who are suggesting now that there may be possibility of sale of assets. Is that a reasonable thing to do?
Well,
to get more money. The last government has said we have a revenue problem.
Well, it depends on where. I don't really think generating revenue is an issue. I think the method we're looking at generating revenue is an issue. There are other revenue windows that we are not even optimizing, especially for subnationals, for states. There are so many revenue windows that states are not looking at. And that is why, if you ask me, subnationals will benefit a lot from subsidy removal because it's more revenue to them. Because when you get to fact, they have more money to share. But all of those money must go into infrastructure. This is because when people see the pain they are going through now, what makes it momentary is when they are able to plug into a private economy, private sector-driven economy or project government of their state is having, and they are able to increase their revenue or their income from that window. But if that not be the case, then I hope that you not lead to some crisis in their future. Let
me get a 30 seconds economic consultancy from you for free and for the benefit of our viewers tonight. If you are advising anyone earning about 250,000, 300,000, or even 500,000 out there, and you have said things might be tougher in the coming days, that means they have to tighten their belt and be able to do what exactly should they be looking forward to? What, in terms of their expenditure and their purchasing capacity, what should they be looking at? Just in 30 seconds.
Well, you need to buy only those things that are very essential to your living. It's important you put your money in what, quote and unquote, will give you value, or as will give you value in medium term and in the long term. If you put all your money liquid in your hand and you are not integrating it to economy, such as putting it in real estate, when I say real estate, I'm not referring to just brick and mortar, everything that represents real estate, part of that income must go into it. The poor man remains poor because he spends everything he has, and at the end of the day, he's looking for what to invest. But a rich man is not necessarily the man with billion or trillion, but the man that had invested first. The best time to invest is when things are tough, because the gains are usually high. Now, you see, President Tinubu's administration will soon be looking for money, and that means that treasury bill rate may even be higher. But it is money that you have saved that you can invest in T-bills or bond in a matter of time. Central Bank will soon announce, or you see federal government bond and all of those. That said, buying things in bulk is always the way to go. Whatever you have now, trying to wait for tomorrow may not be the same. The price of 2x2 angle iron is not what it was last week. The price has increased because of policies of government. And I can tell you, the price may further increase because the impact of subsidy, we are just seeing it with FX at the same time. In the coming months, especially by first week of July, the impact will be fully here, and we might have to deal with it for the next 6 months. And that may drive inflation up to the end of this end of the year, and maybe first quarter of next year, before we now start seeing readjustment. But it can reduce if government investment will significantly improve in real sector. And I believe that. Also, the good news about all of this is that foreign investors may eventually want to come to our country because they know that the value of the money will agree with what the international community thinks about. So we hope that when we are as we're attracting investment, we can also invest money. As country, nation or state, all of the money that comes should go into the development of the state and not to increase individual salary, as the case may be.
Well, Dr. Paul Alaje, what an interesting time that we're in. And my answer just with a lot of Nigerians who are going through a tough time out there, just hoping that they get their balance and get their lives together. We'll get out of these as a people. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you so much.